Okay, this is where we left off the Pac-Man game at the end of last lesson. We'd, inside a try-catch loop, we had opened a buffered reader pointing to our text file. We then read a line, got the width of that line and stored that as width, and then kept reading a line as long as we could until it wouldn't read anymore and return null, and then counted how many times we managed to read it and stored that as height. That way we'd got how many characters were in each of the line and how many lines there were, stored that as width and height for our map, then would close the reader and opened it again. We've done that because we now need to go back to the start of the file and start reading it from the beginning, and the best way I can find to do that is simply to close it and relink it, and that's where we'd left it off. For this one, we're now going to try and read through that text file, putting the content into our 2D array up here, and then read through that 2D array and display appropriate squares in appropriate positions so that we can see a very rough version of our map. So let's have a go at that. So from here, we now need to start reading it again, but we already know the width and height. We've got that here. The width is how many characters are in each line, and the height is how many lines there are. So we don't need to do any while the line's not null stuff, because we already know how many lines there are, and we can use for loops for this. So I'm going to say and this will be, actually the width, I'm going to change that round. I'm going to put y in there first and read that, because I'm going to read it line by line. So I'm going to say y to start at 0 and increase until it gets to the height. And the height is how many lines there are. So then it's going to read a line. So line equals reader.readLine. And now I need to iterate through all the characters in that line, so I can use another for loop for that. Now I'm using width to know when to stop. You could either do line.length, it would work exactly the same way. Okay, so it now reads a line on every line and then iterates through each character. So all I now need to do is read what that character is and place it into the appropriate part of the array. So my map x by y, which are these x and y values here that we're currently on, equals line.char at x. There we go, that should do it. We need to test this, obviously. Now if all's gone well, this would be the end of it, so we can say reader.close, and we'll do a quick test of it. So system.out.println arrays.char at, not char at, arrays.deep to string my map. Deep toString, by the way, shows multi-dimensional arrays. If we just did toString, it wouldn't necessarily show it correctly. So let's test this. We'll run it, and this is the array we get. Now if we compare this to the text file it's supposed to be reading, it's read it by column. So the first column is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and that's our first column. The second one is 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, and that's what it's read. Then 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, and that's what it's got. So all the way to the end, with the last set of 1, 1, 1, 1s, it's read column by column and stored it in the array. It feels counterintuitive to read it column by column. Row by row seems to make more sense, but it doesn't make any difference. We're only ever going to ask for a particular location, giving it an x and y value, so how it stores it doesn't matter. And the advantage of this is we can pass x first and then y, which does feel the right way to do it. If we stored row by row, we'd have to pass the y value first, then x, and that feels a bit wrong. So this way round kind of does make more sense. So let's go back to here. Okay, so we've now finished our load map method. We successfully load, and I'll get rid of that system out to print line because we don't need the testing stuff in there anymore. We successfully loaded a map from a text file into this array, and this map now contains that information. The next thing I wanted to do is to be able to display it. We may move this around later on depending on the class structure you decide to go with, but for the time being we're going to make map be an extension of a JPanel and import JPanel from the Swing package. Make an extension of a JPanel so that we can display this map in a JFrame. And to display it in a JFrame, we've done this plenty of times before, we need to use paint component. So public void so we'll override paint component, and like every other time we've overridden paint component. Oh, I put that in the wrong place, that's why it doesn't like it, so get rid of it from there and put it after the end of the load map method. And like every other time we've done it, we're going to cast our graphics object into a graphics 2D object. In order to use the more updated G2 graphics 2D systems. Right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through our 2D array, drawing either a black square or a blue square depending on whether it's a 0 or a 1 in that location. So first of all, I'm going to decide how tall and wide to do my blocks. I'm just going to set it as a fixed value. One extension you can do is make that width be a function of the width and height of the panel so that it will resize with the screen. So I'm just going to say int block width equals 100, int block height equals 100. So I've got those two defined, and then I'm going to do everything based around that. Straight through this. So I'll make a for loop. So this will count how many of these there are in my map. So this, because these are the columns, it's counting how many columns there are, which is going to be the y coordinate, not the x coordinate, because the y coordinate is how many columns there are. So make sure I do y first of all. Then I'm going to iterate through how many rows there are in each of those, which will be the x coordinate. So for I'm going to take the first one of these and count what the length of that is. Oops. And there we are. So I should now have iterated through everything in there, and I can read what the character is at that point. So all that's going to affect though is the colour. So I'm going to say if my map x by y is equal to 0, that's going to be an empty space, so the colour will be black. And I'm going to say else if my map x y is equal to 1, and that means it's a wall, I'm going to set that to another colour. So I'm just going to say g2.set colour cyan. And then with the colour set, I'm just simply going to draw a box. So g2.fillRect, and x and y is the x coordinate and the y coordinate of the top left corner. So x position is going to be the block width times which block we're on. So from block 0, it means we're right at the edge. We're on block 1, we're 100 across. If we're block 2, we're 200 across. So it just times it by the block width. So it'll be x times block width. The y coordinate will be y times the block height. And then it will be the block width and the block height. Incredible that it managed to fill that in by itself. I'm a little taken back with how it managed to do that. Unless it's noticed I've already got a complete version here and it's nicked it. That's really odd. Oh well. There we go. So this should now draw the block. It'll be, each one will be 100 by 100, but that should do it. So to test this, I'm going to alter my public static void main to actually create a JFrame and put this map into it so we can view it. So JFrame window equals new JFrame. And do the usual stuff with it. So window.set content pane, the map, which is Bob. Window.set size, say 1000 by 1000. Window.set the default close operation. Close. And then finally we'll make it visible. That's the usual stuff we've done for every other project for creating a graphical window put in here. So let's run it and see what happens. We've got an error. Let's find out why. We've got an array out of bounds exception. My suspicion is I've got this X and Y mixed up. Let's just try putting this back to here and this one to Y and see what happens. Yeah, there we are. I've just got X and Y mixed up on that one. So there we are. There's its attempt at drawing it, with the blues being the walls and the blacks being the spaces. And if we look at the text for it, there we are, 1 1 1 1 1 1 0 there, and then we've got this sort of N shape out of ones which is showing up there, and that's it. So that's how we can draw this. What I'd like you guys to work on as an extension is, first of all, get this to resize with the window. That's really straightforward. All we've got to do is make sure that, if I get the code back, instead of giving it a fixed 100 by 100, you make that a function of get width and this a function of get height. So it might be get height divided by however many blocks there are meant to be, and get height, block height will be the height divided by how many blocks they're meant to be in height. That should be a really easy one to do. Then you can also add extra bits. So if in here I decide, well, I'm going to put some dots in certain places, so the power pills, the big dots, let's say that's going to be 2. So I'll put 2 there, 2 there, 2 there and 2 there. Let's get it to deal with that. So in here we can say else if my map xy is 2, what do? You've got to write the appropriate code to make it draw a circle in the centre of that area. A little bit of maths to figure out where the centre is and then draw the radius from there, but that's certainly something you can work on. You can also try and make it look a bit nicer. Rather than just a cyan rectangle, can you make it look something a bit nicer than that? There's a lot you can work on. So all we're doing is making this map display in the window and make it look quite nice. Okay, that's it for this one, and next lesson we'll carry on with this. See you then.